Hello and welcome to video number 9 of Networks and Data Security. My name is Chris. In this video we're going to discuss how software systems are made to work with legacy systems, platforms, architectures, and then near the end of it we're going to talk about built-in administrator tools that you can use to diagnose network trouble. It's going to be great. So programs that are built for older operating systems, legacy systems, that sort of thing, .NET versions, whatnot, typically when they're deployed, they actually come included with all of the necessary files that are now deprecated, no longer included in current .NET versions, drivers that are required, that sort of thing. Now, there are some systems that exist that have become so reliant on their dated software that they either can't change or won't change because change is scary. No, not really. It's because their system actually relies on it. I mean, changing the system out would be hazardous, potentially dangerous, like nuclear reactors that are still running. Jesus, what is that, COBOL? Anyway, so a lot of times now what they do in the event that the system itself can't be interchanged with something new, better, shiny, whatever, is the use of virtualization. Virtualization is good because this allows you to upgrade things like the hardware that's being used and continuing its use, continuing with what's familiar too for the workers, which I know a lot of times is what these decisions come down to. The stakeholders that are directly related and tied to this decision, they're the ones that say this is what's been used forever, this is what we know, this is what we rely on, you know, this is where we put our trust. And it's very difficult sometimes to break that. Now, how do you build a program that's meant to run a program that was built for hardware that you just can't buy anymore? Emulation. And the subtle difference between virtualization and emulation is that virtualization is the software side of things where you are running a virtual environment for the program to run in. Emulation is the virtual representation of the hardware that environment is running in. It's like when you pay about $3,000 for that monster machine of yours and decide to run DOSBox on it. So you can play that, 1992 Apogee G classic Commander Keen. Not that I've done that before, but it was a great game. And the other tool at our disposal here are interfaces. Interfaces like a middleman handler to connect the input and output to be understood at either end. Interfaces could also be likened to specification contracts. This is where you have something like, say, an adapter that has an idea or a configuration that it's expecting at one end and a specific set of requirements that its output must be at the other end so that both sides of the table can talk to each other. Interfaces altogether act like a bridge between the user and the hardware or software. Sometimes the bridge is actually a human that takes instructions and whatnot at one end or receives processing requests, does the work, and then pushes it out, and then it's consumed by the opposite end. It's very inefficient. It also reminds me of the the alien that was playing the mailman inside the sorting machine in the post office, Men in Black. I'm easily distracted. Now, over the last several years, a lot of the major companies have been kind of wrapping all of these modernization problems up into the development and release of APIs. And APIs are like their way of bringing older programs to the modern fore, or making it possible for you to work with these older programs with modern technology and software. The API is the bridge, is the adapter, is that tentacled alien doing all the things for you so that you don't have to try and make it fit. It just finds the place, knows where it goes, wraps it all up, and ships it. And now we're moving on to the built-in administrator tools to help diagnose and troubleshoot network trouble. So you open your browser, can't browse the internet, don't know what's wrong. The first thing you do is look at your modem. Yeah, all the lights are on, but if the lights are on, is anyone home? Now, if you're not too scared of wires and whatnot, the first thing you can do is make sure that you're on a physical connection. If you're running a laptop or your cell phone and you can't connect to the internet, good chances are you're not plugged into anything right now. You've got your laptop in your lap, you're sitting on your couch with your bowl of Cheetos, Doritos, and watching football. I don't watch football. The point is that a wireless connection can actually be the reason you can't browse, can be the reason why your computer, your phone, and whatnot can't connect to the internet. So the first thing to do is plug it into your router, or a better option would be to plug it directly into the back of your modem. Now I know what you're thinking, Chris, wires are scary. What if I strangle myself? Just keep the ends away from all the vital bits. Now, the next thing you want to do, because especially if you had a router connected and whatnot, is restart that modem. Unplug the power, count to 10, plug it back in, count to like 120. Used to be my job to troubleshoot internet network troubles for businesses and tell people to unplug it for 10 seconds and then plug it back in and give it a minute or two. Always seemed to be a problem. Like a minute or two means 5 seconds, and if it doesn't work, it's time to freak out. So we're going to count to 120, and if you can't count that high, that's fine. Just look at your clock and, I don't know, pick 2 numbers away from where you start. Now, hopefully when all the lights on the modem come back on, you can open your browser, you can browse the internet, everything's good, awesome. What you've just done is isolate your router or your wireless connection as being part of the problem. And from there, you can troubleshoot. In either case, this brings us to the troubleshooting step of resetting. There's a little pinhole in the back of your modem or in the back of your router. Whichever one you're connected to that isn't working, you hold a pin or a paper clip into that little pinhole in the back, you push it in there until you feel the button click. Once you feel that, hold it down. All of a sudden, all the lights on the device will turn off. That's your cue to let go. Let it go. Let it do its thing. It's going to restart itself. The lights will turn off and on, whatnot, as it's reinitializing. And then once they've all connected again, like all the indicators to indicate that you should be good to go or lit up, open a browser, try to browse. You might be okay. If you are, awesome. If not, all right, on we go. Let it go. All right, first troubleshooting step is the ping. We're going to open a command prompt. This is the command CMD. You can type into your run box on your start menu. Start a command prompt, type the word ping, space, and I don't know, pick something. www.google.com, hit enter, and see what happens. If you can't ping Google, all right, we move on to step number 2. It's ipconfig. So ipconfig is a command that lets you display all of the network connectivity statuses on for your computer. Now, if you aren't being issued like a public IP address from your ISP, there's some kind of disconnect there. On to step number 3. Actually, before we go on to step number 3, 4, 5, 6, step number 3 is where the administrative tools actually start coming into play. And if these things scare you, if you're like, Chris, I don't know if typing this stuff in is going to ruin my computer or not, maybe I should just let the professionals handle it. Professionals use Google. And besides, you can trust me. That's fine. At this point, call your ISP. Describe the issue you're having to them, tell them the steps you've taken, and let them help you troubleshoot your network connection problem. But if you're tough, let's move on. Step number 3, flush your DNS. So this is a command done in the CMD. Essentially what you're doing here is pushing out your DNS server information, any of the cache data that's there, and making it restore that. Okay, the reason here being that if you're able to ping by IP, but not domain name. So if you can't ping google.com, but you can ping 6.8.5, whatever their IP address is, probably your routing problem is likely DNS related. Flush the DNS, this should likely solve your problem. But if it doesn't, don't panic. Run traceroute. It's traceRT. So traceRT space www.google.com. Because why not? But it's going to show you the route that it takes through hardware. And then ultimately, I'm not really sure it'd be that helpful. Ultimately, it will likely show you where the break is occurring, how far the traffic gets before it's cut off, before reaching Google. Now, if you get to the end of this list and everything so far has worked fine, everything's appearing to be okay, and you still can't browse the internet, you have a virus. Not really, probably. The first thing I would do at this point is bring up your firewall. Because if you're able to route to all these different places and all these different ways and all the utilities are saying everything's fine, go ahead. Well, if you still can't, it's probably something software related, local to your operating system. But I mean, if all else fails, your best bet is to just throw your Windows CD out the window, restart the computer, hit the recovery option, choose to format, and just kind of, I don't know, move on with life. Or bring your computer to a licensed professional or have one that maybe is a friend or something, knows what they're doing to come and help you out. Don't be afraid. And like Miss Frizzle always says, get your hands dirty. Is that really what she says? I don't know. Who writes this shit? All right, that wraps it up for video number 9. Again, my name is Chris. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time for video number 10. I might be wearing a different tie. No, I won't.